never stand out. You are making content that is not useful and doesn't distinguish you from any of your competitors.
How do you figure that out from a personal brand perspective?
Dude, this is the best question.
Calebralston is the media expert behind Gary Vee.
And Alex Hormozi's massive growth.
You generated over 3 billion impressions in just 2024 alone. 3 billion.
With over 100,000 subscribers,
he has cracked the code of digital attention.
Rip the transcript from a creator, make slight tweaks to it to make it your own. That is the worst advice in the world.
Okay, Caleb, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
So you've spent 17 years inside some of the biggest personal brands in the world.
Yeah.
I want to go level by level, right? From 0 followers all the way to 10 million. And I want to learn what it takes to unlock each one. So I want to show you something and I want to get your feedback on this. So there's 3 channels here and you haven't seen any of these before. We haven't rehearsed, you haven't seen these. I want to get your take on these 3 channels. I want to know what you think they should change based on your gut reaction. And
I love these guys.
we have 3. We have the Genius
Andrew and
series.
Jimmy are awesome.
We have the Living Room podcast, and we have Under 30 Home Buyer. And take your time and take a look at these. And I want to know what you think of these, right? What's your initial gut reaction?
I mean, for the Genius series, I think they're doing a really good job of, they have a cool, different aesthetic. They definitely are trying to have a more modern approach to like these TED Talks, which I think is cool. First reaction that I have is there's not much data to go off of, right? We haven't posted a ton of volume. And so that would be my first reaction seeing this. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is because I haven't sat down with them and tried to figure out what they're trying to accomplish, there's not a ton of feedback that I can give. And the reason why, this is actually really cool. I've been wanting to talk about this for a very long time and you've given me the opportunity. There's something that's happening right now where a lot of people are making content where they're breaking down other people's strategies and they're talking about how incorrect it is or how horrible their strategy on blank is. But the problem that I have found is that it's missing a lot of context. It has no input, okay? It's only looking at it from the external level and we're not taking into account what is the goal that these people, the individual that we're critiquing right now, is trying to achieve. And so on the top end, I don't know what they're trying to do. Are they trying to just get the most amount of impressions and views as possible and get more brand recognition in the marketplace? Are they trying to convert people into some sort of community? Do they have a live event that they're trying to go towards? And so the number one thing that can help anybody be able to break down their own content and know if it's working at a fundamental level is you need to know where you're trying to go. You need to know the outcome you're trying to achieve, because ultimately the way that I give any sort of feedback on any sort of content strategy or personal branding strategy is, does it ultimately move us closer or further from where we're wanting to go? And the thing that I've found so many people are doing right now is they haven't articulated what that goal is. Or maybe they have, but then they end up falling victim to paying more attention to the vanity metrics. Does that make sense? It's like the person who says that they're building their personal brand to grow their business, and the number one thing they're always trying to figure out and solve for is views, not conversions. They're not tracking that. And so that would be the first thing that I would say is like, I prefer to do this when I have more context on like what we're trying to achieve. I think the structure that they're using for their titles is interesting. I would consider potentially, instead of having the person's name in the title, I would consider putting it in the thumbnail with them, or some sort of social proof. But that's really it on Genius Series. I'd say I would need more context on what they're trying to accomplish, and I would like to see more volume to see how things are going, and what problem they're really trying to solve. The next one was the living room, you said?
Yeah, the Living Room podcast.
Oh, very similar scenario here. We've got 6 posts, 6 videos here.
Yeah, these are all newer channels.
Okay.
For a new channel, they seem like they're doing really well, right?
Yeah.
In terms of views, again, we don't know.
Yeah, what they're optimizing for,
right.
But as far as like hitting with a splash out the gate.
What are they doing some things right maybe that maybe someone else in their same position isn't doing?
I love these guys, so I want to be careful. But what I'm seeing a contrast on between the Genius series and the living room is that the living room is packaging their content more around the outcome that the viewer is going to get off the back of watching the video, versus some of these videos that I'm seeing here. Some are outcome based, but some of them don't feel as clear on what the outcome is. Something that might be useful for a lot of people listening or watching to this is like, I do tend to think of YouTube videos in a similar way that you want to think about offers. An offer has a very clear outcome articulated for the audience. And ideally, it's like one outcome. It's not many different outcomes. It's a clear outcome that they're going to get. And I think a problem that a lot of people have on YouTube, especially if they're doing some sort of podcast or show, or if they're vlogging, things of this nature, what you end up seeing is a lot of people are trying to jam too many things into one video. And so it's not clear the outcome the viewer is going to get. And so when they're clicking in, they don't know what promise they are being guaranteed that they're going to get. And so I think that's like one thing that I would see here. I think the other thing that I would say is the living room, the thing that they're doing a good job of, at least on that video, is I feel very clear as soon as I click into the video that I'm in the right spot. Like I didn't in any way get promised something in the packaging that isn't confirmed within the opening 30 seconds. That's a really important thing to be doing on YouTube. I think a big one for the Genius series is getting more clear on what the outcome is that the viewer is wanting. So Daniel Pink, I think, has some incredible insights for people. The scientific secrets of perfect timing, I don't really know what that means. And so I think the other thing that you want to be thinking through when it comes to packaging your content is this something that the audience has to think through? And this feels ridiculous to say, but if somebody has to take more than like 2 seconds to figure out what you're saying, you've lost them. And so I think trying to figure out like, what does that even mean? The scientific secrets of perfect timing, what am I getting off of that, right? And so what is the outcome? Like these communication skills will transform your life. That's really clear to me. And that is no surprise that that is one of their top performers. What a billionaire taught me about success. Sure, I think one, we're leveraging Jesse Itzler, who is just a very charismatic character, but also you're leveraging the billionaire factor. That does really well on YouTube as of right now. And so that would be the biggest thing that I would say that I see as a contrast between the Genius series and the Living Room podcast.
Okay, so let's dive into that just a little bit, which
Yeah,
is,
please.
We want to fulfill on the promise that package gives you. And package, we mean for YouTube, the thumbnail, the title, that's giving us some promise. And within the first few seconds or 30 seconds, that intro, we want to let the viewer know you're going to get what you came here for. And if you don't let them know that quick, then they're likely to leave, which retention, and that equals views if that's what your goal was.
100%. Well, and the big thing is like, if you are orienting your content around solving problems for your ideal customer, you want retention. And the reason why is not because of the fucking amorphous reason that everyone gives, which is like more watch time equals more trust. That is sometimes true, but not always true. If you do a horrible job of solving problems in your content, me spending hours with you isn't going to make me trust you more. It's going to worsen my trust. And so what I believe and what we tend to operate within is that you want to solve the most amount of problems in the time that they spend with you. By doing that over and over, by setting an expectation of a problem that they are facing and helping them solve it, you create trust that you meet expectations when you set them. And so what we try to do is we try to get to a core learning as quick as possible in the intro that maps to what we promise them in the packaging. For example, yesterday we filmed, I want to say it was like maybe a 10-hour film day. We got about six and a half hours of raw footage on a course that we're going to be putting out on YouTube on how to rebrand your personal brand. And in the opening, the intro, the hook, I define what a rebrand is. And so it immediately confirms if the title, and I don't know exactly what we're titling it, but it'll be something like maybe how to rebrand your personal brand. And if you click on that, you are expecting to learn that. And if in the opening 30 seconds, you get a definition of rebrand that makes it clear of what a rebrand is, boom, you now feel bought in and your likelihood of continuing to watch increases. We always talk about, everyone in the entertainment space on YouTube is talking about retention-based editing and including graphics and motion graphics and all of this stuff. And I believe the greatest retention hack for educational content is learning. And anything that impedes on that learning, including motion graphics, actually hurts the ability to learn and hurts retention, doesn't help.
So a lot of people are like focused on the motion graphics, VFX, and all these extra things. But if they're not doing, giving the value and giving the, fulfilling on a promise and making it very clear, then they're done.
Yes, 100%. The thing that you want to think about is including this graphic, for example, if we're talking about motion graphics, if I'm going to include this, is this aiding in the audience understanding the concept? Or am I doing this to try to distract them from being distracted? What most people who are overemphasizing motion graphics in their edits, in their YouTube videos, in their shorts are doing is they are trying to keep people engaged. They're trying to distract them away from the other distraction, which is the sidebar or the text that pops up or the Slack message that comes in. And I believe what you end up doing is you distract the audience from the actual learning, and you actually make it harder for them to understand what you are saying. The analogy that I like to give is a really good, this is like for the editing aspect of a YouTube video, a great editor is like a tour guide at a museum. And if you've ever gone on a tour of a museum, you go through a lot of the exhibits, but you don't sit and talk through in detail every single one. A good tour guide knows we're gonna breeze past this one, and then I'm gonna stop here and I'm gonna emphasize this. I'm gonna tell you more backstory. That's what motion graphics serve. You only use them to draw emphasis on something that you're making easier to understand by including a visual.
So valuable. Okay, under 30 home buyer, last one.
Their first video, it looks like is one of their best. So that's always tough. I will just say that out of the gate. When you have a video pop in the beginning, for a lot of people, that can be actually more of a curse than a blessing.
Why is that?
It sets, one, it can set unrealistic expectations. And two, what I have found a lot of people end up doing is they overemphasize trying to replicate what worked. And a lot of times, due to lack of experience and knowledge, they don't know what they should be replicating, and they end up trying to replicate the wrong things. And they end up like chasing, it's almost like they're like trying to chase this high that they can never get again. And so I actually prefer, when possible, for new creators to have a little bit of a actually like slower start, to be able to figure out what they're wanting to talk about. Because the other thing, and this doesn't happen as much on YouTube, but I see this wildly prevalent with short form, is a lot of times people will have a video pop that has nothing necessarily to do with their subject matter expertise or the offer they have on the back end of their content. And they double, triple down on that, and they end up building this brand around something that they don't want to be known for and do not want to talk about, but they feel like they're a prisoner to it. So that would be kind of the first thing, but here, let's see. Well, they do a good job of making sure that what you click in, assuming like that one that we just listened to there, is buying a house before 30 even possible. And then immediately it starts with, think you're too young to buy a home. I like that. The thing that I would say is for that intro, I think there was too much dead space. And so I think what you're wanting to do is you need to capture the attention very quickly. And so that question was great. I like it. That's fine. But I think we need to get into a little bit more meat a little bit quicker if possible. We really try to nail what we use, which is our 4 C's framework for our intros, in the first 30 seconds when possible. And what that looks like is, in no particular order, call out, credibility, compass, core learning. A call out is calling out who is this for. So they're doing a good job of that. The 2 videos that I've just played, their packaging is calling somebody out, and immediately their opening line is the same thing. Then the next one is credibility. Why should I listen to you on this subject matter? That's the number one question in the educational space that anybody consuming your content is going to wonder, especially if they're finding you for the first time. Why should I trust this person? Because there's a million people giving advice on whatever you're giving advice on. And so why do I listen to you over the other people? Also, a lot of people have been burned. I watched this creator, did what they said, and it tanked my business, or it made my relationship worse, blah, 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 blah. I ended up gaining weight, not losing weight, whatever. Or I fucked up my hormones, whatever. Number 3 is going to be your compass. Give them the direction that we are going to go throughout the video. Set more promises, okay? Make sure you fulfill those promises throughout the video. And the final one, which we were just talking about, is your core learning. Let's get into a learning for the audience as quick as possible. And so something that might be interesting actually for this video is, rather than opening it with a question like that, because we're kind of already asking that question in the packaging, maybe what we do is we actually give a statistic of why it's possible for somebody under 30 to be able to buy a home. Or maybe we reveal the fact that everyone thinks that it's too expensive in these areas, but here's some areas in America that are affordable for somebody under 30 buying their first home, kind of a thing. That breaks the belief that the viewer has going into it and causes them to react with curiosity to cause them to watch more. So that would be like the first things that I would say here. Big note is, I think there's too much words on some of these thumbnails. I think there's too much copy. This is where my content director, Trevor Odom, is actually the expert more than me on this.
Trevor, what do you think, Trevor? How many words on a thumbnail?
I don't want to put him on the spot, but he says typically 3 to 5, right?
Yeah, no more than 5 usually.
Yeah.
Unless they're small words. I've seen up to 7 words.
Yeah.
But very tiny.
But I would say those are anomalies. Those are exceptions to the rule. But for the most part, you want to keep your words on the thumbnail from 3 to 5. And then I believe the other thing that he talks about is wanting to make sure that you don't have more than 3 pull points, is what he uses. And basically you can think of that like, let's use an example of, maybe you have a photo of you centered, and then you have copy on screen, and then maybe you have a logo of a brand that you're talking about. That would be 3 pull points. You wouldn't want to introduce a 4th. And the reason why is, again, back to what we were saying earlier, you want people to be able to quickly understand what's going on here. In a world where people are scrolling through their feeds like lightning fast, I mean, you do it, I do it, we're scrolling past shit and making a split-second decision if we're going to watch it. It needs to be easily consumable. And the other thing that I would recommend that this person does is, some of their text is really small. And so what they should be doing is, every thumbnail they produce, you should text it to somebody, and don't click into it. Look at the preview of it in your iMessage. It's going to be tiny. And if you can't read it, nobody will be able to read it, because that's how it's showing up on YouTube on mobile. That's the size that this is on the sidebar, even on desktop. And so you want to make sure that it's actually consumable and easy to understand what's going on. And so I'd say for the under 30 home buyer, the things that I would say is, we need stronger intros that follow a tight 4Cs framework, that are giving a core learning and almost like flipping the audience with a contrarian take. That would be the move that I would go for. That core learning should be a contrarian take, right? The contrarian take here is that, and this is unfortunate, it's a contrarian take, but you can buy a home under 30, right? And that is like actually a very contrarian take in the market right now. And so we need something that confirms that in the opening. So that would be the feedback for them. They need to reduce the amount of pull points and text on screen. For the Living Room podcast, I think they're doing a really good job. Honestly, they have so little volume. I don't have that much feedback for them. I would continue doing what they're doing. And I would see if there's a way to increase the frequency if possible. But honestly, I think the weekly show is great. They're doing a really good job. Their views are, other than 2 videos, very consistent. And that says a lot to me. The Genius series, I think that they need to make sure that they are packaging their content with clear outcomes that the audience cares about and understands. If we're too close to the material and we're too much of an expert, we understand these things, we have the context, but we can't think through our lens. We have to think through the lens of the audience and what they want.
Guys, we've been so passionate about finding the biggest geniuses, and this is just one of the many episodes. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next one, make sure to subscribe. All right, let's get back to the episode. So if you had to rank these by growth potential for the channel, which one goes first?
Living Room.
Living Room. And why?
Because they're following a lot of best practices, and they already, within 6 videos, have clear product market fit. The other thing I will throw out, and I don't know if this is the Genius series is doing, you can take it, a good job, but they have similar subscriber counts. And even though I do not believe that followers and subscribers are a thing to optimize for, I do believe they are an indicator of your audience wanting more. And so that's something that if I were on the back end of their YouTube channel, I'd probably want to dive into just a little bit more.
Okay, let me ask you this. I'm not sure if you've been asked this before. If you were trying to ruin someone's brand at this early stage, What's the worst advice you could give here?
Talking about a bunch of different things that you don't have personal experience on, regurgitating generic advice that everybody in your space is giving. The number one piece of advice that every content strategist, I'm saying every, not every, but for hyperbole's sake, many people online are telling you to rip the transcript from a creator in your space and then make slight tweaks to it to make it your own, and then make that video. That is the worst fucking advice in the world. Why? Because you are contributing to the problem. You are making content that is not useful, is not serving your audience, and doesn't distinguish you from any of your competitors. You will never stand out. The only thing that we want to hear is your advice through the lens of you, what you have done. You should only be giving advice on things that you have actually done, successes and failures. Okay, so that would be the biggest thing actually that I would say is like just copying what everybody else is doing in your space is the easiest way to destroy your personal brand or never even build a strong one to begin with. Another one I would say is trying to spread yourself too thin, being on all platforms at once. For most people who are starting off in the beginning, they are a solo creator. And for solo creators, I encourage them strongly, pick one primary platform and one secondary platform, and that's it. That's all you're going to do in the beginning. There are a lot of individuals who have a lot of credibility in this space who talk about posting 100, 200, 300 times a day if possible. And they are correct. That is 100% the right move. Just like Chris Bumstead's workout routine, C-Bum, the Mr. Olympia, I think like 7-time Mr. Olympia, his workout routine is correct, but it is not correct for me on day one. I will fucking lose all my limbs and be injured to the point where I can never get into the gym. And so I think for a lot of people, they need to recognize that you can work your way up to being on all these platforms. But in the beginning, you need to be able to apply ruthless focus and innovation to one platform and then have a secondary one that you are repurposing to so that you don't have one channel risk. If you do have a team and you are starting off and you have at least one person like I did with Trevor, then you pick 3 primary platforms and 1 to 3 secondaries. And then what you do is you still apply the ruthless focus to one at a time. You have 3 that you rotate between. And so what this looked like for us is YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn. We just applied ruthless focus for the first year with YouTube. So the biggest mistake people could make is trying to apply that focus across 5 or 6 different platforms. It's a horrible move. The other thing, back to where we started, and the thing that I said was tough in giving the feedback is you should articulate why you're doing this. What makes building your personal brand a W? What does winning look like? Because the number one thing that I have noticed that a lot of people come to me with is, I don't even know if my personal brand's working. You know how this is. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of investment. You're removing privacy. You're sharing so much. Why go through all that effort if you don't even know how it's worth it? And so if you go through this journey and you just never figure out why you're doing it, that is a great way to build a horrible personal brand. One other thing that I'll throw out there, not being intentional with who and what you pair yourself with. A lot of people don't recognize that what you share is what you pair yourself with. So if you show up online with characters who have less than ideal reputations in your space, you are going to have that less than ideal reputation. This is where the term lumped into the crowd comes in, right? If you show up with characters who are known for being scammy and sketchy and taking advantage of people online, even if you don't actually do that yourself, the internet does not deal in nuance. They see you showing up with those people, and so they assume you are the same. And so not being intentional with the subject matters that you do touch or don't touch, or the people that you show up or don't show up with, is another incredible way to build a terrible personal brand. That was a fun frame. I like that.
And it seems like a lot of this kind of comes down to your kind of 4-step or 4-part brand framework, brand journey framework, as you call it, right? Can you maybe break that down? Because some of the mistakes that people can make are due to them not following this framework. So it's so important when you're just starting at the core.
Yes. And a quick little caveat too, the cool thing about this framework is every 6, 12, 18, 24 months, you can do it again because this will change. That's the thing. Whenever we work with a partner one-on-one, and I feel like, yeah, they got legs, like they're gonna go. I always tell them, we're gonna do this now, but this outcome that you desire, it will change, it will shift, because opportunities that you can't even imagine will come through. So the brand journey framework is 4 questions, and what we're doing with these questions is we're working our way from the goal that we have all the way to today. And so the first question we ask is, what do we want to have happen? What is the outcome that we desire? AKA, what makes this insane effort of building your personal brand? It's ludicrous to do this. To be posting content on Instagram and YouTube, that's insane. So what makes it worth it? Why are you doing this? Okay, so what outcome do you desire? The second question is, in order to achieve that outcome, what would I have to be known for? A lot of amazing opportunities come into our life because of the reputation that we have. That's what I would argue the majority of opportunities are. It's not even necessarily just the hard skills that you have, it's the reputation that you have around those skills. So what would you have to be known for in order for that outcome to be achieved? The third question is, to be known for that thing, what do you gotta do? We don't get known for shit just by talking, despite what a lot of people online are trying to do. We gotta do shit that we can then talk about to be known for the thing. And so that takes us to the fourth and final question, which brings us to this very moment. In order to do the thing, to get known for the thing, to achieve the outcome I desire, what do I need to learn? And this, the first 3 are gonna be, 1 to 3 sentence answers. The what I need to learn might be like several paragraphs, depending on where you're at. But this gives you the roadmap to go from where you are right now to how you're going to get there. And then you get to use this as a measurement tool. You don't ever now say, I don't know if my personal brand is working. You know it's working if you're moving closer to that goal. You know it's not working if what you're doing is moving you further away from that goal. And so the brand journey framework is an incredible framework to utilize. I've heard from a lot of people that it's actually very effective in many other areas in life too, to just reverse engineer any outcome that you want. I'm not an expert in life. I'm an expert in personal branding. And so that's where I touch it. But it is a framework that I use for many different things.
Yeah, so it seems like step 1 is you need to learn something. You need to have a skill set, something of value. And then eventually you're going to do something with that skill set that draws some outcome, some result. And then you need to talk or give some value around what you know and what you've done. But before all of that, you need to figure out what the end goal is. Is the end goal views? Is the end goal revenue? Is the end goal something else?
Yeah.
And then you work your way backwards. But it seems like that's the core of what you teach initially when people are just getting started. So for people on this level, for the audience, if you're on this level, you don't have any following or you have 0 to 1,000 followers, if you're not following this framework, you might be headed in a direction and you were trying to go here and now you start going here.
Yeah, I would argue you're like Alice in Wonderland when she comes up to the fork in the road and Cheshire Cat is sitting in the tree and she says, which direction should I go? And the cat's like, well, where do you want to end up? And she goes, I don't know. And he goes, either way will take you there. I want to be intentional with how I'm building my personal brand. It's a heavy investment in every area, monetarily, time, privacy, like I said, like everything. And so I want to be intentional with how I'm crafting it.
Okay, you've worked with some of the biggest personal brands in the space, and I'm gonna brag for you right now, okay? So you were Gary Vee's videographer and his TikTok lead. And in 3 months, you grew his TikTok from 300K to 3.5 million followers. And then after that, you built an 18-person media team from the ground up for Alex Hormozi. And you scaled Alex and his wife Leila's audience from 1.2 million to over 11.5 million followers and generated over 3 billion impressions in just 2024 alone. 3 billion. So, okay, let's take us back, right? What did that kind of 5-year plan or that 3-year plan look like from day one, working with each of those creators?
I don't really deal in 5-year plans. I like shorter time periods for planning ahead. One, because I'll give a little bonus nugget here. A big thing around batching content that a lot of people make the mistake of is they batch too much content all at once and then they start publishing it. But what they lack is the learnings that they get from publishing the content and iterating in the future. And so I like to be more, I like being proactive, but this might sound weird and I don't want this to be misunderstood, but I like taking a reactive approach. I like seeing signals and then going hard at it. And so with Gary, the TikTok thing, I want to be very clear. We utilize some very good strategies, but the reason why these brands grow is because of the source material, right? Us strategists that are accompanying and surrounding these brands, we're gasoline on an already bizzling fire, okay? And so with Gary, what it was is figuring out, okay, Gary doesn't create content. More than anybody I have ever worked with, that man doesn't actually allocate much time for making content. The way that I would get TikTok native clips was like the 60 seconds that he had in between his 5-minute meetings or on the walk to the bathroom for him to take a piss. Like, it was extreme. And so there was very little planning that I could do. It had to be very reactive. The planning was, I have these 5 videos this week that I'm trying to get from him. And now I'm literally staring at him in his office and seeing that he just hit send on a text. And right when his thumb comes off, I'm going to enter the room and ask him if I can film a video. Like, that kind of detail. And so that was one system. The other thing too that I'll add to that is the crazy thing that might be shocking for some people is Gary, when he said, I want to go hard at music, or after Musical.ly was bought by ByteDance, he was like, I want to go hard on TikTok. And that's another thing that I want people to know is he always initiated all of that. It wasn't us as the team initiating it. It was like, I see this thing, Gary, and I want the team to act on it. And so he came out and he was like, I want to go hard on TikTok. Who's going to run it? Caleb, you run it. First 7 days, I don't want you making anything. I just want you consuming all day, which was shocking to hear from him. I didn't expect that. But what he told me is he basically was like, I want you to understand the psychology and how people are making content on TikTok, because for anyone who's listening, I would bet the majority of people were not on TikTok in like 2019. Probably not. The majority of people here maybe have gotten on it in the last 5 or 6 years, tops. In 2019, TikTok was an anomaly. This was a platform that the majority of content creators that had built followings on Instagram, YouTube, wherever, didn't understand, because it was just a totally different style of consumption. The lingo was different, the formats were different. And so in those 7 days, I studied what people were doing, and I started noticing at the time that some of the best performing content at the time on TikTok was wholesome content. It was called wholesome talk. I don't know if anybody remembers that shit, but what I started doing is going into Gary's content, all of the Daily V episodes, looking for the most wholesome moments. Gary is an incredibly generous person, and there was many times where he'd be speaking at a live event. During a Q&A, someone would say something crazy like, can I get a job? I'd be like, yeah, you're hired. Fly out to New York in the next 2 weeks and we'll onboard you. And so we would find those moments and then pair them with maybe him selfie video showing that employee at VaynerMedia, right? And those would get millions of views. Or the moment in Trash Talk where he's going and doing garage sale negotiations, like high level, high stakes shit. But those moments did really well, but the moments that did the best were when he was in between garage sales and he'd stop at a lemonade stand and he would buy lemonade and support a young entrepreneur and ask them their unit economics from a 7-year-old, right? And so those were moments that we were identifying were working well on the platform given what people wanted to consume. And so we layered on top Gary with that. Rather than trying to force what we were creating on other platforms, we understood what the demand was on TikTok at the time. And then we filtered Gary's content through that demand. For Alex and Leila, I mean, I think the biggest thing was we were trying to tackle building the team. When I joined, they were working with like contractors, agencies and stuff. And our first goal was bringing everything in-house. And so I'd say the first 6 to 12 months was me trying to understand what these incredible agencies that we were working with were doing, what was working, and then what could we absorb in-house? What could I do on my own versus needing to hire out? And so the first couple of hires looked like bringing on a videographer, editors, short form editors, long form editors, and it was more tackling the media team infrastructure than necessarily even the content strategy in the beginning. The other thing too that I will say is a big thing that I learned during that season is not, and this is it might sound obvious to some people, but I have to say it because it's actually not being done by the majority. The thing that you want to do is, instead of planning some massive content calendar out for the next 6 months, I like to plan maybe 4 weeks ahead. I like to put the content out and I like to iterate based on what we are getting data off of. And I like to look at the top 10% of our performing content, the best 10% of our content. And I like to figure out, how do we replicate what has led this to perform well? Meaning, is it the subject matter? Like, is this topic within the big umbrella of business? Is this specific topic something that is resonating with the audience? Or is it the format? Is it the delivery, right? Because bringing somebody into a direct to camera where you're sitting in front of the camera talking to it versus going on a walk versus working out in the gym, sharing information in those 3 different settings, you're gonna deliver it in a different way. You're gonna articulate it in a different way. And so I think in the beginning, it was more of just trying to figure out, why are things working and how do we replicate these conditions in order to create better performing content in the future. The other thing that I will say is, it was trying to figure out, okay, how do we create a system that we can scale our content output while reducing the amount of input from the founders, from the people that are in the content? Any business owner listening right now is going to resonate with that hardcore. In the beginning, maybe you are excited about building your personal brand and you allocate more time, but very quickly reality kicks in and there's fires in the business. There's problems that need solving. And so what I tried to do is build a content engine that required as little of their time as possible in the seasons when they were busy. And then when they would have more time to make content, cool, we would lean into that. But it was always trying to reverse engineer wherever they were at. And that's why you can't plan super far ahead. With some business owners you can, but with what I have experienced, high level operators who are actually operating the business, not just like front facing, but they're really actually running shit in the background. Your goal, your job is not to develop a 6-12 month plan. It's to every day reverse engineer where they are, because today you have a plan and it will completely shift tomorrow. One other thing that I want to share too that is super useful here is, I'm naturally very curious and I'm keenly aware of the fact that a subject matter expert is going to find things that are valuable to their audience basic. So many experts that make content, some of their most valuable, useful content that they can put out there, they aren't putting out because they think it's boring or basic. Why? Because it's boring and basic to them, but not the audience that they are trying to reach. And so another thing that I would say is, for anybody who is looking to hire this role, is you need somebody who is going to be able to extract more out of you. The best content that I got with Gary, for example, was not off of just what he was saying, but it was the follow-up question digging deeper into what he was saying. With Alex and Leila, gangsters, so many things that they do, they view as basic and easy, but I would look at it and be like, yo, everyone wants to know why you're doing it this way. You do this every day, it's rinse and repeat, but for the audience, this is novel, this is new, they've never seen anything like this. And so another thing that people need to do is they need to be able to look at their content through the lens of their audience, not through themselves. It's kind of like that saying in sales, don't sell out of your own wallet, right? Don't make content out of your own wallet, so to speak, right? You want to make content knowing what the problems are that your audience is facing, and you want to serve them that, not what you just find interesting.
Were you just crushing it right off the bat with each of those creators, or was there a day where you were like, hey, I'm not sure if I'm the right guy for this job?
Always.
Really?
Oh yeah, dude.
You're questioning yourself?
Probably until the day I die. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you have times where a video that you and the team put a ton of effort into that you think is going to absolutely crush flops. We prep a big film session and we didn't do a good job of prepping it, and the talent shows up and they're like, what's going on? Right? Like all the time. Yeah. Like here's the big insight for everybody listening. All of these massive personal brands, the teams on the back end are various forms of shit shows. It's just true. Like, cause it's a constant evolving thing. And so and I don't say that in a bad way. I say it in like, it's an encouragement thing. Like, these operations are not perfect. Like Trevor and I, our film session yesterday, the first 3 hours were absolute chaos. I ended up getting really excited. I stood up too fast, knocked over one of our pieces of equipment, and we had to make a serious pivot, and it delayed our film session by 3 hours. Like, these things are constantly happening for everybody. And so the big encouragement that I would say for people is like, it looks like things are perfect from the outside because these individuals are fucking good at what they do, but it's not always perfect on the back end. And they're still getting incredible results despite that. And so I would say, view that in an encouraging light that you too can do this no matter what problems you're encountering. Because I promise you, these big dogs in the space, they've encountered the same problems probably 10 times more.
Okay, let's talk again about the creator that's just getting started, right? Most people, maybe they don't know what version of themselves to put on camera, right? How do you figure that out from a personal brand perspective? Is it performative, or is it a selected version of themselves?
Dude, this is the best question. This is my favorite one that you've asked so far. You, 100% you, to the level that you're comfortable with, and then increase it over time. Right now, everybody in the personal branding space in every different niche is competing on the biggest commoditized thing, information. That is not the differentiator anymore. That is no longer the differentiator. There are a select few individuals who have information that others do not. Sure. But for 99.9% of the rest of us, that is not the case. And so the thing that differentiates us from our competitors, that allows our audience to connect with us on a deeper level and have more loyalty towards us, is us as a human. We actually talked about this a little bit on the rebranding video yesterday. We have a video coming out in, I think, like a month or so, called, the working title, this is not what it'll be on YouTube, but the working title is Human as Fuck. And the whole principle here is like taking the way that relationships are developed in real life and applying that methodology to how you build your audience online. The way that I talk about this is, I always try to paint a scenario. Imagine when you started at your first job, or when you went to a new school as a kid. When you start in any new group or organization, most of the time, unless you're really, really outgoing, we're a little shy. If you're like me, you're very shy, and you're not gonna reveal things about yourself. The only thing that you have in common with these people is that you're part of this organization. You either go to the same school, you work together. But then over time, as we get more comfortable, we start to reveal more things about ourselves. The example that I was giving yesterday is when I was in junior high, I showed up to school. I remember going from 5th grade to 6th grade. I went from being the big dog to the little guy. And I was wearing my Lincoln Park shirt. And a guy who ended up becoming one of my really good buddies, Mikey commented on how much he loved the Hybrid Theory album. All of a sudden, we now go to the same school and we like the same music. So we have more things in common. Then we found out that we both like skateboarding. He actually was good at skateboarding. I was a poser, but I liked the idea of it. And then we found out that we love, and this is very specific, drinking Monsters and crushing donuts in the QFC parking lot. Terrible combination for anybody. But the point here is we stacked multiple interests in common. And I would argue that for the majority of people listening or watching, if you think about acquaintances in your life, you probably have one, maybe two things in common. But as you get closer on the relationship sphere, if you talk about like a best friend or a partner, you probably have a lot of things stacked in common with them. And so this is the tool we use, which is interest stacking. How can you identify the non-niche human inputs that make you you? And then how do you integrate them into your content? Because where this quickly gets misunderstood is, oh, well, I love playing guitar, but I teach people how to build strong marketing funnels. Well, I'm not saying go make a video on your YouTube channel about your guitar or how to play. But what I am saying is, how can you integrate it? Is it a background element on your set? Are you getting crazy on TikTok and writing songs talking about, like, how can you pair these things together? And a lot of people ask me the question of like, well, the thing that I'm really into and obsessed with is super niche. And my response is, I like Harley Davidsons. Like, that's not a big thing. Like, very, very small. The motorcycle industry is less than 2% of the automotive vehicles on the road. Just that alone limits it. And then of the motorcycle industry, Harley is like, unfortunately, not as big as I would like them to be. And so just because your need or your interest is super niche doesn't mean this won't work. Let me share an example here. We have not had a single client that we have worked with that has come in to work with us one-on-one that is obsessed with Harleys. But we have had many clients come in that are obsessed with their overlanding rigs or their supercars. And what they have told me is even though they don't understand the Harley thing, they understand the obsession because they see that the first thing that I talk about is all the modifications I've made, all the upgrades, just like they have to their rigs. And they see themselves in that obsession. And it's caused a deeper level of connection with those individuals that then they're more likely to want to work with maybe me, not just because of that, obviously expertise, credibility, blah, 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 blah. But there are many other people who are also gangsters at building personal brands. I'm not the only one. And so these interests, these non-niche human inputs are some of the things that can cause you to have deeper connection with your audience and carry them over from just being a viewer to being a customer.
And do people overthink this part, right? Is there a straightforward process to presenting themselves? Or are they like, you know, they're lost here, really?
I overthink it.
Really?
Yeah. I've been doing this, you said, over 17 years now, and I'm overthinking this all the time. And what I would encourage people to do is, this is something that you need to ease into. I'm not telling you to go full tilt, be 100% yourself tomorrow. If you can, cool. I can't. I'm too scared. We overthink these things because the natural reaction is people won't take me seriously if I share this side of myself. People aren't interested in this. And I understand that. There's a video that we are releasing this Friday that I bring out a side of my personality, because I think I have a couple of different personalities, undiagnosed. And I bring out a side of me that I've injected in small doses in the content. But if I'm being completely real, and I haven't really shared this anywhere, I've been terrified that showing this side of me, it's my more silly, gregarious side. I'm very like, the word that a lot of people online like to use is like unhinged in this video. And I, going into it, and after we filmed it, and I told Trevor this, like I had a concern that some of my audience won't take me seriously after watching this. And they won't hear what I have to share through the same filter that they have previously. But it's who I am. And I think that the real is every one of our partners and clients sees that side of me. And so I might as well give them a preview of it before they come in so they can determine whether or not they like that or not. And so the thing that I'm trying to get more and more comfy with is understanding that if I'm fully myself, I'm attracting the people I want to work with and I'm repelling the ones that I don't. And so it actually, both sides work in my favor. By repelling people, I am repelling the people that I wouldn't want to work with. Because if they don't want to work with me because I'm silly and gregarious and a little quirky sometimes, well, then it's not going to be a good relationship. And so I think the thing for people to realize though is this is a step-by-step process. I am now 16 months, I think, into making content on YouTube. And this is going to be the first time that the whole video shows this side of my personality.
I'm excited to see that one.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited to see the response. I'm very curious. But I think for people, you just need to understand, you can identify the things that you want to include in your content, and then you can inch your way towards it. The way that I did it is I would just inject that side of myself in moments in the video. And if you were to go, and I'm not encouraging anybody to do this, but if you were to study and watch all of my videos from start to finish, oldest to new, you would see that I am becoming or sharing more of who I actually am. I'm showing more of my personality because I'm getting comfortable with it.
And I saw in a recent video you did, you took your hat off.
Oh, dude, yeah.
That was...
revealed the bald head.
Boom. And that was huge because that was something that I assume as someone who's slightly getting there, right? That you were self-conscious of that, or
Massively.
Massively.
Huge insecurity of mine. I was the kid who was obsessed with hairstyles. I would look at women's and men's hairstyle magazines. I had all the products. I loved my hair.
Well, you have some here. I'm
It
still
migrated
trying.
south. It always migrates south, I feel like.
But yeah, I mean, you even referenced it to like the Eminem in 8 Mile, like saying, hey, like you can't make fun of me for this, because boom, I'm gonna make fun of myself, or I'm gonna show this off.
Exactly, brother.
And
you nailed it.
That's a huge part of just like this is who I am.
Yes.
I have to be real.
And even though a lot of people can't necessarily relate to me because they're not bald, they have their own thing.
Right.
So many people
Everyone's
that I talk to.
insecure about something, maybe.
Exactly.
Right.
And when they see you reveal yours, they immediately think of theirs.
Right.
And we feel a deeper level of connection with that person. And so I believe that, and I also think it's also an answer to the way the internet has been. So many personal brands have been just posturing and showing perfection. Everything's great. I don't think we're wanting that anymore. I think we want the real. I think we want to see who these people are. And by sharing these things, I think we become more relatable to our audience.
Totally. I'm sure you get so many kind of just basic questions when people are just starting off. What's the question you're done answering for beginners?
It's funny because I don't think through that frame that often. I have empathy to understand that, like, who am I to say I'm not willing to repeat myself? But I think probably the question that people should stop asking in the beginning is, honestly, let's just go with my biggest contrarian take. How do I go viral? Yeah, I think having that be your North Star and the starting point causes you to do things and optimize in ways that I do not think are good. Nothing wrong with going viral. I think when you optimize for it, it causes you to talk about things and do things that are not in the best interest of your long-term success. It's kind of like a reference that I use is Phil Jackson, the coach of the LA Lakers, the Chicago Bulls. He coached two of some of the greatest basketball players of all time in Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And he talked about the fact that with these teams, they did not optimize for winning championships. They won a lot of them. But they didn't optimize for that. They optimized for brotherhood, and brotherhood took care of winning. I believe that if you optimize for trust, you take care of the right people seeing your content. If you optimize for virality, you do not end up solving problems for the ideal person. You attract an audience that is not in line with what you offer to the world.
And what makes them ask that? They see something go viral, get tens of millions, hundreds of millions of views, and they're like, I want to be that person. I want to be famous. I want to go viral, versus thinking about it from your 4-step brand journey framework, which what is the outcome? If the goal is, let's say, revenue at the end of the day, then maybe I don't need to go viral.
I think it comes from a couple of things. I think there's the assumption that just more eyeballs equals more money. There's still this belief in the world that like all of these influencers online are like mega rich. 3/4 of them are not at all, and they are renting a lot of the things that you're seeing, that they're using as social proof to indicate that they are successful. And so I think that there is just a complete misunderstanding. I also think that a lot of content strategists and individuals who teach this shit have cracked a code on how to get a lot of views. It's not incredibly hard if you're willing to just talk about anything or do any sort of like activities within your content. And they've gotten really good at cracking that code, and that's how they monetize. And so they have been teaching people that this is what you need to do to get success, work with me. And so the thing that I would always look at for people is when you're taking advice from somebody, what is their incentive? What are they incentivized on? And is that clouding how they're teaching you? It's what people think they want. It's what all the strategists are talking about. And so it's permeated the zeitgeist. But I've been seeing this change. I don't know about you, but when I go onto my YouTube page, my homepage lately, I've been seeing a lot more people talking about optimizing for trust than virality. I do feel like it is starting to shift, which is good.
And with that, let's go into level 2. So level 2 is you've crossed 1,000 followers. This is the 1,000 followers. You're trying to get up to 10,000 followers, okay? So if someone crosses 1,000 followers, okay, what does that number actually tell you about the content, and what should their kind of next move be, right? They've started to build a little traction. They started to get a following, and now how do we go from 1,000 to 10,000, the next level?
I think honestly at that stage is just doing more. It's literally just doing more. Like really up until even like 100,000 followers, it's more about looking at what's working and just doing more of that at a higher frequency to the best of your ability. And so, I mean, that would honestly be my answer, is trying to serve the audience in the best way possible and making sure that when you see something that works, you are pouring gasoline on that fire. For us in the beginning on Instagram, we very quickly realized that anytime we talk about the brand journey framework, it really fucking hits. And so what did Trevor start doing? Well, let's start posting more about that, right? And so it's just figuring out what's working. And the biggest, actually, here's the biggest unlock that is super obvious and nobody's doing. Look at your data. Start tracking the actual performance. Like, stop guessing. Stop saying, oh, I think this is doing well. The amount of people, actually, honestly, the amount of very sophisticated individuals that are marketing gangsters that understand this concept in every other area of their business, but don't apply it to their personal brand and organic content is insane. And so the big thing that I would recommend is at this point, you should calculate your 90-day median on the metric that you are tracking. If you're tracking views, likes, saves, shares, conversions, whatever you are tracking, I want you to calculate the median for the last 90 days, and then you need to grade all future content against that. And you need to update this median every 30 days. This is going to give you, this is something that like Trevor built this whole cool like spreadsheet where we're able to just enter in, you know, if we're tracking views, this got X amount of views, and immediately we see, oh, it's a 1.5x or it's a 0.5x. And it just becomes so fucking clear if you do this every week, every month, every quarter. If you do this, it becomes so clear what you should continue making and what you should stop making. Emphasis on that second part. So many people in this stage, in the 1,000 to 100,000, even to 1 million, are posting shit that they know isn't working. Why? I don't know. I have not cracked that psychology, but they are doing this. And when you actually start tracking the data, it becomes fucking obvious why shit is working and why shit isn't working, and what you need to double down on and what you need to remove. And the biggest thing that I would say too is back to that batching thing. That's the other thing that a lot of people in this stage are making the mistake of, is they're batching 100 shorts in a session. But after 10 of them, you have enough learnings to make a lot of modifications. But now we have this like sunk cost fallacy of, well, I filmed these other 90, I got to distribute them. And so they're not operating off of data and they're not iterating off of data.
So data is really, really important at this stage. Looking at your outliers, looking at your wins, doubling down on those, and constantly, every 30 days, constantly analyzing data, because things might change. You might have a different outlier. You know, I might need to go in a different direction. Now, if a video, and let's say at this stage, gets 1 million views when they normally would get 10,000, right? How much of that is the creator, is the niche, is the luck, is the format? How does someone know, right? Because at this stage, they have data. Okay, this video got more views than the other, but what contributed to that? You know, what if that's a similar video than what they've made before? How do they know what it was that actually gave them the success there?
You could either sit in a room and debate for a couple hours what it might be, or you could pick one of those variables that you just mentioned, test it in the next video, and validate. And so the big overarching principle here is, instead of debating, just do. I'm a big fan of test. If Trevor and I are sitting there going back and forth trying to figure out how something is going to do, or if this is a good idea, we're like, wait a second, we're falling into that trap. Let's just fucking do it. So for example, actually, the video that we filmed yesterday, what we're doing is something very similar to what we did in January. This is a little bit of a tangent, but I promise it's useful. In January, what we did is we filmed an entire course that we were going to release on how to start your personal brand. We filmed it in 3 chunks: brand positioning, content strategy, and then a podcast between Trevor and I talking about everything we did month by month in the first year to grow my personal brand. We released all 3 of those individually as videos. And then the 4th week, we released the full course stacked together. What we did yesterday is the exact same thing. And what we wanted to test, I have this crazy idea where I wanted, basically one of our intros is just 2, maybe 3 sentences tops. And it's actually only using a call out and core learning. And that's it. And I just wanted to test and see, because if we believe that learning is the greatest retention hack, why would we not start our opening sentence with a learning? That's a theory though. And so we could debate it all day long, or we could just say, fuck it, let's do it for one of these videos. And so that is the mode of operation for people. The other thing that I want to real quick call out is actually, I would say really 0 to 10,000 followers. Data is important, but the most important thing, because I wouldn't even distinguish 0 to 1,000, I would just go 0 to 10. It's just the consistency. It's like going to the gym. Like, I have tended to yo-yo on my fitness journey my whole life. I have a background in powerlifting, and ever since then I've had seasons where I get back into it, and then I go off the wagon, so to speak. When I get back into lifting, my whole goal for the first 2 weeks is just to get to the gym. I don't need some crazy workout. I don't need it to be optimized. I need to build the habit of doing it. And so 0 to 10,000 followers, honestly, you just need to be building the habit of showing up consistently and doing this every day. After 10K, let's start getting more optimization focused. You can do that before, by all means. I just think for most people, that is a bigger barrier to entry than maybe we realize. And so in the beginning, it's about the consistency and building the habit. 10 to 100,000 followers and beyond, that's when the data and iteration off of that data becomes really important. If you watch that podcast between Trevor and I, the fucking obvious theme of our first year was iteration. Like, we do not do things because we have always done them. We always are shifting based on new information.
And you're the first person I've heard mention the idea of negative association with a brand. And so can you give us some examples of what it looks like to get this wrong, right? And I'm sure you have some. What's bad brand positioning?
I will not give any specific examples because I am not a call out creator. I am a contrarian creator, which means I don't call out individuals, I call out concepts. So I'll speak to this at a high level, but I guarantee everyone's gonna imagine individuals in their head. The first obvious one is if you are wanting to build a personal brand that is known for providing value and being trustworthy. And you and I both know, it was something that when we were driving here, looking at like your pages, like it felt like you were the opposite of this side of the internet, which is there's a lot of people that sell shit that they would never buy themselves and that isn't really all that useful. And they know it's not. They're incredible marketers and they're terrible with a product, right? If you want to build a brand where you're known for delivering value and being trustworthy, if you show up with these individuals, let's say on a podcast, for example, the more that you show up with these individuals, the more that is the filter or the lens that the audience will view you through. And so that's one version of it, of showing up with an individual with a bad reputation. And I'm not even saying a bad reputation like inherently bad. I'm saying bad as in opposite of the direction you are wanting to go. So a negative association isn't an inherently negative. I'm not out here trying to make value claims. I'm not a morality expert. But what I am very good at understanding is you have articulated what you want to accomplish. Anybody whose brand reflects the opposite of that, do not pair yourself with, right? And so that's one version. The other, though, is actually subject matter that you speak to. A really good example here is if you are trying to reach high-level operators and entrepreneurs who have 10-figure plus businesses, the last thing that you want to pair yourself with online is any subject matter around get rich quick, right? Because they have massive negative associations with that concept. They hate that shit. A lot of those individuals laugh at the creators talking about passive income. They're like, nothing is passive, right? Like passive income is horseshit, right? That's what I've heard from every single one of these big dogs that I've worked with is like, they laugh at those things. And so understanding who you're trying to reach and making sure that you not only pair yourself with the stuff that they find positive and will be attracted to, but you make sure to identify what are all the things that if I show up this way with this person, talking about this thing, referencing these things, will cause me to lose trust or interest with those individuals.
Maybe the problem with starting off is not knowing the questions to ask. What's the advice that maybe no one asks you but needs to be answered?
It's the opposite of the one that I said should stop being asked. Instead of asking, how do I go viral or how do I get the most views? The question that you should start every piece of content with is, how do I serve the audience the best with this? How do I solve the biggest or most amount of problems for my ideal customer? So many people right now are starting with their competitors in mind and copying what their competitors are doing and what's working. And we're going into this like phase, I believe, of the internet where everything feels over optimized. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about our favorite podcasts and creators and how their content now has become over optimized and it lacks this like human character. And so I think if you start with your own selfish desire in mind, you work yourself down towards that path where your audience feels like there is a disconnect. Sure, you're getting a lot of views, but the people you're trying to reach don't feel like you're actually serving them anymore. Versus if you start with your audience in mind, how do I solve their very painful problems? And I define painful problems as just costly. Cost them a lot of money, time, stress, anxiety, relationship equity, whatever it is, right? These costly, painful problems that they have, people need to start with that in mind on how they come up with ideas. Like what I will tell you is we do not go to oneof10.com and look at what everybody who's making content about personal brand is doing and then figure out how do we make that video. What we do is we start with the problem that our ideal customer is facing, our unique solution, and then we go to 1 of 10 and utilize that to help wrap the gift that we want to give our viewer, our customer. Does that make sense?
Yep, and for the audience listening out there, 1 of 10 is a platform where you can find outlier videos, right? So you can see packaging in terms of title, thumbnail, and what you'll see on there is a lot of creators will copy each other because one will have an amazing outlier with a specific format of a title or thumbnail or both, the packaging of a YouTube video, and then you'll start to see a bunch of other creators do that. So you're not starting by going there. You may go there later after you have your core concept idea, delivery, and may go there for ideas on packaging or ideas on title or thumbnail, and maybe use some of that, maybe not copy directly. And so we're not starting with that though.
Correct. And what we do is we don't look inside our niche, we look outside our niche. I don't want to look when I say these things out loud, it sounds so fucking obvious, but it's what everybody's doing. If you want to stand out, why would you want to look like everybody else? It makes no sense. And what the big dogs in your space that y'all are copying are doing is this. They're looking outside of their niche when they're doing it correctly. The other thing that we do that I'll add in here, this is for the advanced individuals, is we call it Frankensteining. And so it's not necessarily taking a 1-for-1, oh, we love this title and thumbnail combo, but it's we like this thumbnail over here and we like this title format here. Let's combine them to wrap the problem and solution that we're giving our audience.
I like that. Okay, let's go on to level 3. We have 10,000 to 100,000 followers, right? Going from 10K to 100K as a brand is like maybe the middle of a marathon. You have a big goal in mind, and what's the most, I guess, boring advice you have after hitting, and you hit 100K on your own channel, right? Give me the most boring advice you have after hitting 100K on your own channel. Is it all about data? What's the next level up here?
I'll give you 2 answers.
Okay.
What I would tell other people and what I'm going to do as an experiment. Yes, data and increasing volume. That's what you want to do. How do I increase volume without decreasing the quality? And by quality, I mean not what you subjectively deem as quality, but what your audience signals to you as quality, okay? So how do I increase volume and maintain the bar that my audience expects of me? That's like the number one thing after 100K. We're doing that. But also, something that we are trying to do is, I have this thing that Trevor and I have been talking about where it feels like the current ecosystem has gone too hard on this like outlier packaging. and has gone too hard on almost like the, and this is not in any way a negative towards this individual, but like the Mr. Beast style of wrapping your YouTube content. And what we have found, funny enough, for our channel specifically, is our best performing content from a growing the channel and getting customers perspective has been when we package shit really on the nose. As in, it's really clear. It's how to build a brand, or how to build a personal brand, how to start your personal brand, how to lead a personal brand team, right? Like these very simple, clear titles. And so we are currently experimenting with trying to test and see what works best for us and what does our audience want more of. Do they want that more YouTube-y style, for lack of a better term? You know, the last video you ever need to watch on personal branding, or do they want these more on the nose titles? My hunch is that we're going to come with a takeaway which is more nuanced than that. For these types of videos, you need to package them in the YouTube-y style, and for these kinds of videos, they need to be more on the nose. But I just have this belief that people are getting tired of this shit. It's kind of like the rise of these like yap videos or whatever. It's funny to say because yap videos have been around since the fucking internet and you could upload videos to YouTube. Like the first YouTube videos, all they were yap videos. My high school vlogs were yap videos. But anyways, the reason why I believe that has emerged is it's a response to this hyper curated content. And everyone says things like, oh, it's authenticity. No, that's not true. You could do a yap video and be wildly inauthentic. It's not authenticity. It's that we believe it's a proxy for authenticity. It's harder, or at least we believe or perceive it's harder to fake shit in a yap video versus a highly produced and scripted YouTube video, for example. And so I think what I'm constantly trying to do is see what is everybody in the market over-indexing on and what is the next reaction to that? Because that's the way that content flows. We go hard in one direction, people get tired of that, and the people that pop meet the other need. They go in the opposite direction. And so that's what I'm always looking for. My issue is sometimes I end up being too early on this. I end up getting, I did a post forever ago about this. It's one of the best things that I've had in my career at my disposal, which is I get bored of shit faster than most people. And so I'm constantly looking to figure out what is that next thing. And that's kind of the spot that we're in right now.
How do you figure out what that next thing is? Like, what are some processes that you use, maybe a 3-step process to try to figure out where things are going? Is it about just consuming content? Is there other things involved there in looking at the landscape and where things are going?
I think it's just trying to see what is being supplied the most right now, right? Like what is everybody doing? For example, I did this with releasing my free 6.5 hour course on YouTube. What I did is I looked at what is the market currently supplying everybody and how could I do it differently? And so at that point, at that time in the personal branding world, the majority of the content was 15 to 20 minute masterclasses, which is a contradiction in my opinion, but like they were these videos where they would say it was like a super in-depth video, but all they were doing is value edging them the whole way. They were taking them right up to the point of a big learning and then not giving them the sweet release. So what did I want to do? I wanted to take the thing that they actually monetize on their back end and provide it to the marketplace. I talk about in my content, if everyone in your industry, in your space is releasing free courses on YouTube, it's not a good strategy. The reason why it worked is because it was the opposite of what everybody else was doing. And so that's really what I'm looking for. I don't even necessarily, I probably do have a 3-step. I've not sat down and like figured what that is. But what I would say is look at what is being supplied the most in the market and how can you do something fundamentally different than that. If you show up to your space looking like everybody else, you're not Waldo. You're not going to stand out. I want to be Waldo, not the NPC in the image. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where's Waldo?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. I was like, that's such a random reference.
Okay, after your 17 years of experience, and I'm sure this has happened, right? What's maybe some consulting advice that you gave that you still regret, right? Was there something you came in and you were totally off with? And if you could go back, like, what would you do differently in that step?
I have a cheap answer and a more expensive answer. The cheap answer is the biggest regrets I have is when I had a strong belief on something that something was either the right direction that we should go, but we weren't going that way, or something was very wrong and we shouldn't do that. And I knew that to be true and I had evidence to back it, but I didn't vocalize it stronger. So I think that's the cheap cop-out answer that makes me sound awesome. Let's give the more useful, real answer here. I think one big one is I came up consuming Gary's content. And I think I didn't recognize until I worked for the man how much of an anomaly he is and how he is, for whatever reason, wired fundamentally different than any other human I've ever met. And so some of the things that he is able to do not work for people. And so in the I'd say 2017 to 2020 time, there would be people, it wasn't like any official consulting or anything like that, but people would come into the Vayner office, meet with Gary, and then he'd be like, Caleb, go talk to them about their content or whatever, right? And I would give them the advice of document, don't create, that Gary coined and made so popular. And I didn't understand the nuance of document, don't create. What I now understand to be true is 99.9% of people that are trying to do that do not speak or think in sound bites. They don't have that interesting of a day-to-day. They're not Gary, where they have literally 30 meetings in one day that are all across Manhattan, or he's flying across the world to go speak in some foreign country at some epic stage, right? And so the vlogging method was not necessarily the right advice. The document, don't create was. I just didn't understand the nuanced version of that. Document, don't create doesn't always mean that you have a person following you around with a camera. It just means that you look back at the conversations you've had over the last week, 2 weeks, or month that were impactful, whether it's with clients, customers, or your team. And then you make content talking about that. You're documenting what you do, not necessarily in real time. And so I think there was some people that went out and started vlogging and did not get good results from it because frankly, they were not interesting enough or did not speak in a way that would lead to that being an interesting enough piece of content for people to consume.
Was there a really bad bet that you made that ended up paying off?
As in it just made no sense? There was no logical reason to do this, or? Basically,
you came in and maybe you didn't have some data to back it up, but you were like, you know what? I think this could work, and it ended up paying off, or it ended up not paying off. Were there times working with these mega creators where Trevor?
I'll say this one. Trevor came to me saying that he wanted to make a bet on me and that he thought that we could build something special. And I did not agree with him. I tried to talk him out of it. I was like, dude, I don't know if I got what it takes. I don't think I'm your guy. If I were you, I would pick a better jockey. But we were talking about it and I decided, I was like, cool. The first hire I'm going to make in my business in month 1 of building Ralston is going to be a content director. I'm going to eat my own dog food. So that would be one big bet that has massively panned out very well.
Trevor.
Trevor is an absolute savage.
Yeah, Trevor.
Yeah, big time. I'll share another one too that we did together, which was the course. We filmed this and did this in month 2 of my business. And for people who have big businesses, this won't sound like anything. But for me, in my second month of building a business, not having mass amounts of wealth or big savings account or anything, I wasn't in that spot. I invested $16,000 into producing that 6.5 hour free course to put on YouTube. And that's not including man hours and salaries or anything like that. And that was a huge bet for me. Not only to invest that amount, but then to release something like that. Because I had a belief that it was okay, I do believe and I do teach people, give away all the secrets, share all this information, and then you can sell the personalization, you can sell the implementation. But then when it came time for me to do it, it was oh my God. I remember we were sitting down, I was like, dude, I would totally, with the level of value in this, I'd feel comfy charging $5 to $10,000 a pop for this easily. And we could make a lot of money doing that. Are we sure that we're going to make the same amount off of what we get from this course? Because sure, I'm wanting to help people and I'm wanting to serve people, but I'm also in month 2 of my business and I'm trying to make sure that I make it to month 3, right? And so that was a big bet that at the time I was like, this is going to be either really epic or a really epic failure. And I can't even express to you how much that fundamentally changed my life. Like, my life is wildly different because of that specific thing. Like, I went from thinking that I was going to build a fancy job of like, I'm going to consult for a couple of clients to, oh, I can build a business. I can actually build something here. Like, we've gotten over 50,000 leads just from that fucking video alone.
I'm one of them.
Thank you. It's insane.
So valuable.
It's nuts.
Yeah. And for the people that are out there that haven't watched yet, Caleb on his YouTube channel has a 6-hour course on how to build a personal brand. It's past 1 million views. It's his most successful video on his personal brand. And obviously Caleb's past 100,000 subscribers now on YouTube. If you haven't checked out his channel, check out the channel. But that course is so valuable. If you're just getting started building a personal brand, that course is valuable. And the fact that you spent so much money and so many man hours producing that, that had to be scary for you, because like you said, you could have charged for that. But I'm guessing that the amount of leads and the amount of clients you're going to end up getting from that course long-term, you're going to get a huge ROI from giving out. Again, comes down to the framework. You've learned something super valuable. You've done some cool shit. And now you're able to teach that and give it away free. Then people know you, like you, trust you, respect you. You're an authority in your space now. And now you can go to the goal, which is to these bigger brands, I'm assuming, and work with them because they've seen it.
Yeah. If the idea is we want people to think, if he's putting this out for free, what the fuck is he charging for?
This takes us to level 4, right? Because this is exactly where you're at. Between 100K and 1 million followers, you've passed 100K.
Can I share something actually real quick here?
Yeah.
This might shock you. I don't set follower goals, ever. I don't even think I've actually said I want these views for a video. There's maybe been 1 or 2 videos that we did where it was like, my thinking behind it was like wanting it to go wider. And they're some of our lowest performing videos. And so I think it comes back to like the annoying advice that I will give, the boring, obnoxious advice is if you keep your customer and your viewer at the center of how you optimize everything, and you actually are just trying to solve their problems and help them solve their problems easier and more effectively, everything else will take care of itself. That course, it's our most successful video in terms of views. Within our space, I would call that maybe micro viral. But no way did we go in with that being the goal. And so I think what's interesting is what you optimize for influences your behavior. And if you're optimizing to hit a follower count, you're going to make the content that's necessary in order to reach that follower count. If you are trying to build true trust with your audience, then it causes you to optimize and behave differently. I define trust just as the measure in which somebody believes that you are going to meet or exceed expectations based on what you've done in the past. And so if I optimize for setting an expectation of a problem you have and helping you solve it, rinse and repeat, I'm building trust like crazy. And if I optimize for that, then the outcomes I desire take care of themselves. People are going to want to work with me and trust that I'm going to help deliver on the thing that I say I'm going to deliver on because I've done it so many times for them for free. Like I have a video where we talk through 3 stages, right? It's 0 to 100K, 100K to 1 million, 1 million to 10 million. And we use that framing just to help people think and chunk this down into sections. But ultimately, I've never been a fan. I've worked with people that like to make follower count goals, view count goals, impression goals, and that's great. And I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but I just want people to be aware when you set that goal, you create deprivation. You're here and you want to be here. And we as humans, we want to close that gap as quickly as possible. And so we will behave accordingly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For all the business owners, it's like how you incentivize your employees influences how they behave. And if you give them the wrong incentive, they're going to do things right, but it's going to be wrong for you.
Yeah, and if you're creating a brand right now, and obviously we're talking about leveling up your number of followers, again, comes back to the basics. Let's think about the end goal, right? If the end goal, let's say for building your personal brand is revenue, right? Building that trust and delivering value through your content is going to equal revenue. And it may equal some followers. It may not equal millions of followers depending on your industry or who you serve. But if you focus on that, right, it's learning some cool shit, building some cool shit, and then eventually giving value in and around that, you'll get to your goal, your revenue goal, but you might not get to 1 million followers. You might not get to 100,000 followers depending on your niche. But again, structuring it where you know your goal, and I assume most people's goal, entrepreneurs that are building a personal brand, is revenue. It isn't follower count, even though some may think it is, but in a lot of times it is. And followers may come along with that, but that probably for some, or maybe for most people, shouldn't be your ultimate goal.
Yeah, I think for 99% of individuals, it's an ego thing. I think it is 100% an ego thing, and ego does not pay your bills.
But let me ask you this. Okay, let me push back on that. This is a brand new podcast, and by the time this goes live, we'll have some level of viewership, let's see. Part of the reason I assume you were open to coming on this podcast was because I had some level of following. If I had 100 followers, no, not at all.
I've done podcasts that get less than 100 views.
Okay, what about the person that pushes back that says, to make the connections that I need to make, okay, I will be perceived differently if I have X amount of followers than if I don't. If I'm building a podcast, I'm reaching out to guests. If I reach out to, a specific guest, very high profile guest, one of the first things they may look at is, who is this person? Does he have a following? What has he done? And so to push back there is, in some cases, follower count might be beneficial over revenue.
Because you've articulated that a desired outcome that you have is to get access to guests that are only willing to go on podcasts of a certain following.
Again, perfect, right?
Exactly.
Comes back to your framework.
You nailed it.
For this specific, setup, if my goal is to get high profile guests onto this show, then follower count may be something I should optimize around.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
But for most businesses,
yes,
most entrepreneurs and businesses, it should be revenue.
Yes. But I would also argue it depends on what kind of podcast you're building. I have a buddy who his podcast, he's using it as a mechanism to raise for a fund. And so he doesn't need the masses, he needs the right people. And so again, it just comes down to, what are you really trying to accomplish, right? Like, I would ask you a deeper question. What's the goal of your podcast? Like, what are you trying to accomplish with doing the podcast? Is it lead flow for your business? Is it that you want to write a book, or you have a book coming out? Is it you want to speak more? Is it that you just want to be able to connect with these individuals and have them in your relationship sphere? Which is a totally great answer, by the way. That then influences what following, right? And depending on what your answer is, that gives you the ceiling of the following. Some answers are going to have a higher TAM than others.
What's a piece of maybe content advice that's popular right now that you think will look foolish in a few years?
Copying everybody else's shit. AI is going to do that really fucking well. You're not going to stand out in any way, shape, or form. If you don't get the habit and mechanics and understanding of how to show up as who you actually are, and telling stories and teaching frameworks and concepts based on what you have actually done, you're fucked.
For those who can't watch all of your content, what's the...
There's a lot of it.
It's a lot of content.
There's a lot of hours,
right?
Yeah.
What's the one piece of advice they should take from you at this stage?
At the 100K to 1 million?
Yeah.
Run with the putting your audience, putting your customer first. Starting with them in mind, that's the given. I actually think 100K to 1 million, you need to start thinking about team. It's going to be very hard for you to do this on your own. There are people that do this, okay? So like everything that I'm sharing, there's obviously anomalies and exceptions to the rule, but you're going to want to make sure that you actually have a team. Collectively, before I started, I already had 100,000 followers collectively, I think. Something, or very close to that across all platforms before Trevor and I started making content. And so what did I do? I hired Trevor. I need help to be able to scale this, right? And now we've brought on a long form editor and a part-time shorts editor, right? And so we're expanding the team. We have a copywriter. Like, we're starting to add to that in order to scale to that next level. And so in this stage, it's about not figuring out, how do I as the individual do more? For some people, sure. But the majority, it needs to be, how do I bring in a team so that I can scale this thing? So that I can go from one primary platform to 3.
And what's the first person you think you should bring on? Is it someone for strategy?
What's your biggest constraint?
Got you. Okay.
So here's a piece of advice that I would give as far as filtering advice. If you hear anybody say, this is your first hire, they are wrong. Meaning, there is no generic playbook or org chart that you should follow because you have different needs than Jill or Sarah, right? One of the best pieces of advice that Gary gave me when I actually went from Vayner to work at Constellation Brands is he said, if you ever go and build something like Team Gary, don't do what we did here. Don't just don't just build and replicate what we did. Reverse engineer the strengths, weaknesses, and preferences of the individual that you build it around, right? Like, Gary doesn't like do writing. Like, he won't like write shit. And so, like, if you work with somebody who does write, well, that fundamentally changed the whole workflow and the hiring process and the order and sequence in which we hire creatives, right? And so it's understanding, what is your biggest bottleneck right now? If you have a million ideas and you have no problem filming all of those, but you have 10 videos in the backlog for editing, what are we going to hire first? Probably an editor. Now, if you want to go ultra advanced mode, do what I did. Hire a content director who is able to, who has the skill to do all of those things. They're going to have like 1 or 2 that they're exceptionally proficient in, and then they're like gangster level at, and then they have the other areas where they are good. Okay. Anyone who says that they're the best at everything is fucking lying through their teeth. And so what you want to do is figure out, if you're going to go the advanced mode, you hire a content director that their primary skill sets, the things that they are one of one on, are the things that you're currently missing. So it's either that you're hiring the individual contributor to solve the current constraint, but then the cost that you're incurring is you got to lead them, you got to manage all of that, or you can do what I did and hire a content director and they will build the team for you. That's the recommendation that I have if you are capable of doing that, but they are obviously more expensive.
And where do you find a content director? Oh
my God, this is the hardest question on earth to solve that Trevor and I might be doing a whole podcast on this evening. The first thing I want to call out is this is a brand new role. This is new. Head of personal brand, media director, content director in this context is brand fucking new. YouTube is 20 years old. Like, the joke that I like to say, and I will only be able to say it for a few more months, is like, YouTube can't even drink in the US. It's brand fucking new. And so this is a very new role, and not a lot of people occupy this. What you end up finding is a lot of people are either really good with the strategy side or the creative side. You rarely see the two married into one human. It happens, but when it happens, I find that it's typically built, not bought. And so you need to decide which one of these two am I good with training and with them developing and learning on the job. I'll invest in them learning and gaining those skills so that they can level that up. Now, where you find this person, oh man, it's tough. Here's what I tell people to do. And do this tastefully. Don't be a fucking weirdo about this. But I want people to list off 10 to 20 creators that make content in a way that they admire, that are 2 or 3 rungs up the ladder, not 10. So don't look at like if you're just starting off or you're, in the early days, don't look at like the top dog in your industry and be like, I'm going to go try and get their team. That's not going to happen. They're not going to want to work for you. And understandably so, you don't have a big enough opportunity for them yet. But if you go 2 or 3 rungs up the ladder and you look at these people that are making content in a way you admire, I would, in the least weird, creepy way possible, stalk them. I would be following them on Instagram and set a notification for any time they post a story, I'm looking at it. And I'm just waiting for the moment where they tag their team. And I'm not going for the number 1. I'm trying to find who the number 2 or the number 3 on the team is. And I'm just reaching out to see how things are going and if they have any interest in potentially having the opportunity to build something of their own. Why number 2 or number 3? One, they don't have the bias of what they previously built. They have the beautiful vision of all the things, not all, but a lot of the things that went well and they should replicate, and a lot of things that did not go well and they should not replicate. And they also want the opportunity a lot of times to build something. This was me. I am describing how I was God. I wanted the opportunity to build something. I didn't build Team Gary. I joined Team Gary 3 or 4 years into its existence, right? Like podcasts sometimes, and I understand we got to get the clicks and you can't apply nuance and titles. They'll say like the man behind Gary Vee. I joined Team Gary 3 or 4 years into that shit, right? And so, yeah, I would say you want to find those people who want that opportunity and then give them the opportunity and autonomy to build. That's how you attract them. And what I just described is a very difficult process and it will take you a while.
Awesome. All right, we're going to level 5. This is 1 million to 10 million followers. Ivan, can you bring me the laptop?
Thank you.
All right, so 3 new channels, and I'm sure you might know some of these people. Okay, so let's say you had 100% control over these 3 channels. What would you change today and why? And for the audience there, we have Cody Sanchez, we have Mark Manson, and we have Sidemen.
I mean, Cody's a gangster. I'm not going to do too much here because one, I'm just not a fan of doing this publicly. I'm not a big I'm not saying there's anything inherently wrong. It's just not my style. What I will say is I would love to see Cody do a course on YouTube. I think that would be gangster. I'm a big advocate for a lot of people to do this.
Similar to what you did on your 6-hour course. And
and it doesn't need to be 6 hours. It could be 2 hours, right. 3 hours, whatever.
Yeah.
But
and hers is on buying boring businesses or something that she's.
Yeah. It'd be gangster.
Right.
And with like a really savage workbook that is paired with it, I think that would be massive. I think it's something that more people should consider doing because on every channel that I'm seeing that's doing this right now, these are the videos that are producing the most growth for the YouTube channel and the most sales. And so it is incredibly impactful. So that's what I would love to see from Cody. I think she is killing it. Mark Manson, I think he is an incredibly thoughtful creator. I think for Mark, honestly, I would need to watch more of the videos to be able to give any of the feedback there. But I think Mark has an incredible brand. I think he does a great job. Sidemen, I'm not familiar with this channel at all. This appears to be in the entertainment space.
Yeah, I'm not familiar either.
So I honestly, again, I don't like to talk about things that I'm not an expert on. I don't understand the entertainment world hardly at all. I have very, very, very little experience in it. I deal mostly with educational content, which I kind of boil it down to, you make content, and if people watch that content and change what they do after they watch it, it was educational content. If they're watching the content to escape whatever is going on in their life right now, it was entertainment content. There's nothing wrong with escapism, by the way. It's still very valuable and useful for people. But yeah, I definitely deal more in education. But what I would say is actually, I'll just say the same thing for Mark. I would love to see Mark do a course. I would love to see, actually what would be super interesting, and I apologize if he's already done this and I just have missed it or something, but his book was extremely impactful for me, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. What if there was a course on how to not give a fuck? That would be very cool. And so I'd say actually for both of them, I would love to see that because I think the number one thing that a lot of people have in terms of skepticism around these bigger creators is okay, I see these 30-minute videos, these 45-minute videos. What level of depth is truly there? And I know a decent amount of these individuals, and I know that for some of them, there is an extreme level of depth that I don't believe they're actually showing in their content for whatever reason. And so I think that a course would be really cool.
Yeah, because you once said 99.9% of the courses, and correct me if I'm wrong, 99.9% of the courses out there on how to build your brand lack real principles.
Yes.
They're purely social media tactics that will no longer be relevant 6 to 12 months from now.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Well, at a high level, we have a lot of people right now that have been doing this game for the last 3, 4, maybe 5 years. And they've gotten a lot of success. And what has worked for them, they teach, but it's just a tactic that will fade. I believe a principle is something that works in 3 or more different scenarios and is timeless. And in a world where you just teach tactics, you're creating dependence. In a world where you teach principles, you're actually creating independence. My goal is not to fish for you. I want to teach you how to fish. Like the way that we try to work with our clients, and I'm sure this is a terrible business model, but my goal is that you don't have to work with us forever. I want to teach you what you do, and then I want you to run off and do it because I think that serves you the best. And it goes in line with my overall philosophy with personal brand. Serve them more than you serve yourself.
Who is the person that you would point to when you talk about an excellent personal brand at this scale, right? Over 1 million followers, and they're giving value.
I'm kind of drawing a blank right now, and I'll tell you why. I don't consume a lot of this kind of content. When I'm consuming content, it's like motorcycle content. It's like I'm trying to learn some very niche specific thing to solve a problem in my business. So, like, it's weird. I don't actually have like the biggest pulse on everything that's being made out there. And I think that's one of my superpowers that I've had is I try to do my best to not be influenced by what everybody else is doing. Back to what we've been talking about this whole time, doing the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So I feel like I have a horrible answer for you there, but I can't think of somebody specifically right now because I think a lot of the really big dogs, a lot of them, I believe, have actually over-optimized their content, and their audience that they originally built this for is no longer interested in this. And so it's gone away from the character and interest and value that it has, and it's now just an engine that is rinse and repeat.
Okay, last one. And what does it cost to grow a brand this big, right? When you're getting to 1 million followers, you mentioned a team. These people are putting real money behind growing these brands. It's not just like a guy in his basement that gets to 10 million followers by himself, right? Editor, strategy, there's a lot that goes into it. What's the cost look like?
A lot. I mean, I've been part of teams that were spending over $150,000 a month just on payroll. So it gets very, very expensive. I do believe as AI is evolving, it will get less expensive. Right now, I'm very anti, like, I replaced my team with AI. I'm like, yeah, and it shows. We know your content sucks. Like a lot of the people that are screaming that from the mountaintop, their content isn't good. And so I think right now we're still in this like weird in between where there's still that like old world of like, I need a team of like 5, 6, 7, 10 people. And this contrast of all these people saying, no, you can outsource it to AI. What I want to tell people is in the future, I'm sure it will get cheaper and you will be able to do more with AI. Right now, your AI content output is dog shit. It is.
But in the future, there's going to be AI strategist and AI editor,
100%.
AI everything.
Yeah. And I don't even know what that looks like. And honestly, I spend as little time as possible trying to think about that and more just once it starts happening, I want to react quickly. I want to be quick to react, but I don't want to waste my energy on wondering about the future on that. So I would say that what you can definitely expect, even at like my level, is about probably $20,000 a month.
Caleb, thank you so much for coming on Decoded Genius. I appreciate you, and I think the people are going to get a lot of value from this.
Thanks for the opportunity, man. It means the world.
Yep, thank you.